Tell me a little bit about why you're successful and the team that you built.
I think you have to adapt. You have to pivot. You have to be nimble, right? You got to be quick on your feet. I think the best entrepreneurs in the world are very quick on their feet. They can move very fast. We're about to take the team nationwide. So our goal is to scale to 5,000 agents, doing 10 billion a year in production or more. We'll be the first team to ever do that.
And so these people are joining your team to get training. You guys are also giving leads. How are you taking care of 150 people?
A lot of work. Yeah.
What's up, well builders? Today I got a guy who's going to do 400 wholesale deals this year. He's got the #1 real estate team in Arizona and maybe even more. I don't even know. But this dude, he's making it happen as both a realtor and an investor and, doing content online. He's got his own podcast, which I was on. I've got Austin Zaback. What's up?
What's going on, Ryan? I appreciate you having me, bro.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, dude. So let's just hop into this, man. A lot of people always ask me, they're like, dude, should I get my real estate license? And I'm like, no freaking way. Okay, you don't need to be a realtor to do this game, whatever. But I did start as a realtor, and you're a realtor, and you've got one of the top teams in the country, and you're still wholesaling, which a lot of realtors can't wrap their mind around. They're like, well, how can I wholesale if I have a license and all this stuff? So tell me a little bit about why you're successful and the team that you built.
I love it, dude. Great question. Yeah, it's an honor to be here, man. I started out in wholesaling, right? A lot of people don't know that. So I was a wholesaler before I was a realtor.
Oh,
that's
odd.
Yeah, dude. So I got into wholesaling because of Cody Sperber, right?
Mm-hmm.
I saw an ad of his in 2014. And I paid him to be my mentor. And I was working a job at the time,
This is in 2014?
2014.
Wow.
Yep. So I got into wholesaling in 2014. And early 2014, maybe tail into 2013, and I just started making it happen, man. And then about a year and a half into me wholesaling, I became a realtor. So in late 2015, I became an agent, and the only reason I did that, I actually did not want to be an agent. I called one of my mentors at the time, and I was like, "Hey, dude, I want to do more." At the time, I was an entrepreneur, I'm like, and he's like, "Why don't you become a realtor and then you can represent these flippers that you're working with, right? And you can double end." And at the time I was like, sounds like a great idea. Cool, I'll go get that, And so I went and got that. And kind of the rest is history, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've been at it for a decade now. And you've done both at a high level. Which one, I guess, kind of accelerated first?
Wholesaling, for sure. Yeah. Wholesaling was really my bread and butter. The agent thing, I'm kind of like you, right? I'm an agent to this day, but I don't enjoy being an agent. In terms of going out and shaking hands and meeting with people and doing that whole thing, right? I enjoy running a team, but it's a totally different game. I'm just leading a team, right? I'm not actually being an agent. And so, but I didn't even really get into that until 3 or 4 years ago, pretty heavily. So I was an agent that whole time, but I didn't start a team till 2020-ish. And I never really pushed it that hard until probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we blew up. We blew up quick. I did a merger, so we can talk about that if you want. Me and Keith, who's actually in the room, we did a merger. So I had built a team. He had built a team, and we actually merged as one team about a year ago.
What was the point?
Just to scale. Grow bigger, grow quicker, right? It's just that, I think. And then we had a ton of synergy. I was already on. He was on Zillow. And I wasn't on Zillow, so he gave it to me.
You were one of those premier agents or whatever?
Yep, and we are now, I'm Flex. And so, yeah, dude, the merger was really a couple different things. We're about to take the team nationwide. So our goal is to scale to 5,000 agents, doing 10 billion a year in production or more nationwide. We'll be the first team to ever do that because most people become a brokerage somewhere in that journey. And we have zero intention on ever becoming a brokerage.
So when we're talking about a team though, are we talking these guys are working for you with leads you provide, or are they just in your downline? What do you mean?
Yeah, great. Yeah, so you have brokerage, right? And then underneath a brokerage, you have teams, right? And so an agent can join just the brokerage directly, and they would be a solo agent with a brokerage.
And what brokerage are you with?
LPT Realty.
Okay.
We used to be with EXP. And so they could join the brokerage, right? But a lot of agents, they want to join a team because the teams are really where you're going to get the leads and you're going to get the systems and training and transaction coordination and all of that, right? Typically, brokers aren't going to give out a lead. Yeah. A team leader will give out a lead. And so teams are really valuable in the marketplace, for reason. And yeah, so we scaled this big team, and now it's like, okay, why can't we do that everywhere?
How many people are on the team now?
Over 150 agents.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's like, what do people pay to be on a team? Because they got to pay you.
It's just a split.
Yeah. What's the split?
So 75-25 self-generated typically, depending on the agent. Most of them are 75-25, and then 50-50 team generated. So like if we provide the lead, it's a 50-50.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then does that take into account what the brokerage takes as well?
That's after that.
That's after what the brokerage
so they pay, broker takes it off the top, and then we do it after.
As the team.
Yep.
Right. And so these people are joining your team to get training. You guys are also giving leads. How are you taking care of 150 people?
A lot of work. Yeah. I mean, look, I have an incredible team, incredible partners. We have a big staff, to help out. We have 3 office locations. So you went to one of them. We actually have 2 others. And, it's just a lot of work, man. I mean, like, the thing is, though, is that if you build good systems and processes, like, it will run, it'll do its thing. So I think my biggest advice, dude, is just like, for anybody watching, you have to build good systems. Like, if you don't have that, like, you don't have anything. Like, if you're, my partner always tells me, he's like, the more important you are to your business, or the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable the business is.
Yeah.
So
smart.
like, we're here, right? We're in Vegas, and I'll bet you we put 10 deals up today, So it's just like, it's running now.
Yeah.
Now the question is, can we take what we did there, and can we duplicate that in Vegas, in Florida, in Texas, in California, wherever, And I think we can. I think we're going to be able to do that. It's going to take a lot of time, energy, and work, but I do think we'll be able to do it. And we're already wholesaling nationwide, so I understand a lot of the different markets and stuff like that,
Does the wholesale business feed the team for listings and stuff?
A little bit. Yeah, a lot of people think that it would feed it more. I think maybe that is just a lack of implementing the right systems, but it isn't that often that a seller will say, hey, agent, come do a listing presentation with me. And then like midway through the listing presentation, they're like, wait, I want a cash offer.
Yeah.
Right? Or the other way around. Like, where we have wholesalers, on the phone with a homeowner talking about a cash offer. It doesn't happen as often as you would think, where that homeowner is like, oh no, I'm going to go list it on the market. And yeah, I have such a good relationship with you on the phone that I'm going to use your referral. You know what I mean? It happens. Like, we do probably a handful of deals a month, but it isn't like...
It's not the source.
No, not at all.
So how do you get them leads?
Wholesale?
No.
Or retail?
For retail.
So retail, we're just partnered up with a bunch of different companies. So like, we partner
Zillow
with
gives you all these
Zillow,
leads.
HomeLight, Veterans United, all kinds of different companies that we just essentially partner with and create win-win relationships. And we have a big vendor department. Like, we own a mortgage company, title company, insurance company. So like, we have all these different people that are sending us business, and then we're sending it to them back in return, So it's kind of a win-win. And I think that's how you have to build a team in 2024 and beyond, right?
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. Building a real estate team is probably the hardest. It's probably even harder than education. I really believe that. Like, to be profitable and to run a well-oiled team, like, dude, I mean...
What are the expenses? Because a lot of people listening would be like, well, what do you mean? Like, you make 25% off everyone's deals. Like, what are the costs to it, right?
Yeah.
You're already partnered up with Zillow and these guys. So, are you just buying leads from them? Is that how it's going down? Or what is it? What happens?
Yeah, we're not, because we're on Flex. So Flex is different than Premier Agent, where we just give... Zillow takes 35% off the top.
Got it.
So imagine the broker takes their fee, Zillow takes 35%, and then we split 50-50 with the agent.
Yeah, you're splitting like a 50%.
It's nothing, And then we have a full transaction coordination department. So we have 5 full-time people that just do TC work on just the retail side, not including wholesale. And then we have, offices and CRMs. And I mean, the profit margin. Now, we run it very healthy, right? Like, we run probably right this second, probably a 40 or 45% margin. But like, that's unheard of in our industry, like completely unheard of. Like, it just doesn't happen, And the only reason we were able to do that is because we scaled out of non-profitability, right? Like, you have to go through that, because a lot of people listening, probably, if I had to guess, if they're on the retail side, they have a team of like 30 to 50. And that is like where you die. Like, you die at 30 agents. Like, if you have 30 agents, like, either go back to 10 and run a really profitable 10 agent team and just be hyper-focused, or you got to get past 100. Because like, past 100 is where the magic can actually happen, in my opinion.
Because you need to build that foundation.
You need the scale. You need the volume. because
or Zillow don't want to work with you or whatever.
or yeah, Zillow will drop you. A lot of the other people will drop you. Zillow's, I mean, dude, they're a tough partner to please. I mean, at the end of the day, they are, dude. Like we're here for Zillow, right? And they're tough, man. Like if you don't hit their metrics, if you don't do what they want you to do, they'll drop you.
They're
like as
we got
a team,
a million other people who want these leads.
and they're lined up and they'll take them, So it's like a tough game, man. You got to really make sure that you're on top of it. And as a team leader, you're managing real estate agents, which the average agent.
You're just managing salespeople.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, but I would argue real estate agents aren't salespeople.
No.
Like if you look at the average agent, I think that they're freaking people, man. Every real estate agent I met, they're like, I got into it for freedom. And it's like, but you work nights and weekends. Like you work when other people aren't working. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so I don't know, dude. I think that, when you look at the average agent, they're not that great at sales. They're actually not very good. They're typically not very self-motivated. And
they have no marketing ability.
Yeah. You really do got to hold their hand, man. Like when you're a team leader, you're a full-time babysitter.
Dude. I mean, I had a brokerage with 200 agents. We were independent and, I remember I was thinking about like getting them leads and stuff. I was like, I'm not getting these babies leads. Like they can't even figure out how to show up on time or,
Literally.
like they don't ever show up, period. So it was just funny. Like, yeah, realtors are the way they are.
They are. And you can't change that.
Yeah.
We accepted that finally. Like no, but I'm being for real, right? Like a lot of people, there are a lot of team leaders and brokerages out there that are still trying to change agent behavior.
That ain't changing.
Right? And it's like, dude, just accept the way they are and then figure out the solution after that. Like, how can you solve your problem, whatever that might be, knowing that information, right? Because like a lot of people think that the solution is to change their behavior.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, you just need to double the size of your team.
Yeah.
Like you just need more of what you already have.
You're going to have so many non-producers.
Exactly.
And, that's how you find the 10% that produce.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, because what's the stat? 90% of the deals are done by 10% of the realtors.
I think it's like probably even worse than that. But yeah, I think that's the stat floating around for sure.
Yeah. Well, especially now with things like Zillow pumping it all to the top teams.
Yeah.
So like they're going to just do more than everyone else.
And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
Zillow, I mean, Keith would know, in a couple of years ago, dude, like in Arizona, Zillow probably had over 100 teams, okay? Like on the platform, right? And before that, it was even more. Now I think they're down to like 30.
Yeah, they're just trimming.
They're trimming, and they're going to keep trimming, you know? And all the opportunities is going to flow to the top. And if you're not a top team, you can't get on the platform. And if you're an agent not on the top team, you're also not on the platform.
It's funny. So I was at Ty Lopez's house 2 days ago, and we were talking about how tech and AI are forcing essentially this massive gap where the cream is just going to rise to the top and get all the rewards, and everybody else is left with the scraps. And it's like, that's exactly what Zillow is, right? Zillow has all the traffic for home buying.
Yep.
The other sites aren't even close.
No.
And so now Zillow has all the leads, and they get to decide how they want to sell them. They're like, I could sell them, a la carte to our premier people, or you know what, we'll JV with the top people. But guess what? If they don't hit our metrics, we're going to find the next top person, and then we're going to keep reevaluating. And we got 30 teams right now, but guess what? Who's the bottom 10 teams? All right, let's cut them and give it to the good teams, and let's just keep that process, because I mean, their thing is, how do we monetize the fullest?
And they want to monetize every aspect of the file, right? Like
they want the TC, they want the escrow.
They're in mortgage now. Yep. So like now, like as of a year ago, not even, like before, because we own a mortgage company too, right? And before, it was like we could refer that lead to our mortgage company, and we would
they don't let
get
you
paid.
Do that anymore.
Now it's like, dude, if you don't send them to ZHL, like you're off the platform. Like if you don't hit a certain metric, it's like 20% or whatever the metric is, right? Like if we're as a team as a whole, if we're not hitting the metric that they want us to hit, then we're in the we're in the closet, right? Like we're not doing good, And they're gonna keep going, dude. Yeah, they want title. They're getting into that. They want it all, but it's just the way it is. Like, what are you gonna do, right? And eventually, they might even want to own the agent, right? Like the team. They've kind of tried dabbling with that. I think it's gonna be a lot harder than they think, but I think eventually, and like our thing is like, hey, like, then we'll just build it so big and get acquired by them. Then if like that's their end goal, maybe Zillow is the person that would acquire a nationwide team with well-dialed systems and processes, like that could be an outcome.
Yeah, and then Zillow wouldn't even need Premier or Flex agents. They would just already have it in house.
It would just be in house.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
But I think the moral of this story is that, he who has the gold or the leads gets to dictate the terms.
Yep.
And it's like Zillow has, let's just say the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
He who has the traffic. We talked about this society being an attention-based currency now. And so it's like those who have the most attention get to call the shots and decide how things go. And people are like, well, it's like, bro, look at Mr. Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Logan Paul. I mean, these dudes just launched a new thing together, Lunchly, about to go make billions. They don't know anything about food.
Yeah.
But they started doing food stuff a couple of years ago, and here they are. They're already taking down Lunchables and Gatorade and, Hershey's. They're coming after all of them who've been around for like 100 years.
It's insane.
Because they just have more attention and eyeballs. And then, same thing. Zillow has all the eyeballs, and Zillow's like, you know what? We could sell these leads to anybody. You know what? Great. You're doing a good job converting them. We want the mortgage now.
Mm-hmm.
We want title. We want to monetize this lead to the absolute fullest.
Yeah.
And it's like, there ain't nothing anyone can do about it.
No, nothing. No, it's a wild world we live in, dude. I mean, I think the only thing you can do is to be the guy that has the attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got to
like,
generate it.
You got to do it yourself. Like if nobody else is going to come do it for you. That's why we're here today, right? It's why you run a massive podcast and you're massive on social media and you've got a heck of an operation, and I'm, walking right there behind you. And it's just like, that's the only choice that you have. It's like, hey, like I'm going to start playing the game now. So then in 20 years from now, I'm that guy.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about it from a personal brand standpoint, but even like for me, that's why I started Lead Kitchen now, because I just realized, leads are hard to get now. I mean, we're talking about right now why Zillow has control is because they have leads. That's literally what this whole thing comes down to. And I'm like, dude, if I can figure out how to just like be the number one source of leads for, the wholesale industry and the flip industry, it's a wrap.
Yeah. It's a wrap, dude. And Lead Kitchen's great, by the way.
Thank you.
So, I mean, everything from the marketing to the actual lead itself, So you did a really good job. And I was just upstairs a little while ago, and I'm excited to see what you build with that. I know you're helping a lot of wholesalers and flippers and people out there actually, get motivated people to talk to.
Yeah. That's the hardest part of like the agent game and the wholesale game, right? They're just like, okay, but how do I find these guys?
Yeah.
It's literally everyone's first question.
Everybody.
And then they finally find somebody, but then they don't know how to sell. They forget. They realize they don't have the second part of the equation either.
Right. That's too funny. Yeah, it's the truth though, man. Like, everybody and their mom, they want to know. And it really isn't that complicated at the end of the day. But I think, to do it consistently and at scale is where it can get a little bit tricky. Yeah. Right? Because, like, you can just drive through a neighborhood and just knock on a door and, like, get lucky, right? Yeah. But it's like, can you do that every day? Can you or every week or every month or however often, however, depending on your goal, right? And I think a lot of people find that that's a lot harder than just going out and doing one-off. Because you'll talk to people all the time that are like, yeah, I just did a $90K wholesale deal, right? Yep. And it's like, cool, how long before that deal did you do a deal? They're like, oh, my last deal was 5 months ago. It's like, okay. Yeah. So you're making like 15 grand a month. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're not actually...
Well, and you're running a even riskier operation to make 15.
Literally.
Because it's like, I would rather take the guy who's doing a deal a month, at 15 versus like, dude, hopefully I catch me a big one. Mm-hmm. But... what's interesting too is, just like the wholesale business in general, like, your team right now, you guys are doing a ton of wholesale deals. I mean, we're talking about the normal realtor team, but, talk about your wholesale operation and, how that's gotten to where it's at today.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll do just under 400 this year, a little bit of a lower year. I think next year we'll probably do 600 wholesale deals conservatively. We put some new management stuff in place. But look, I've wholesaled like 5,000 houses. Like I've been in the game for, a long time, 2014, right? And it's also a tough game. It's a totally different game, by the way, than retail. I mean, like it's not even like the same at all. I mean, you're managing like, so for me, we have a pretty big team, right? We wholesale at least a deal a day, a lot of times 2 deals a day, Monday through Friday, of course. And it's all people. Right. So, but it's like a different type of person. It's not an agent anymore. It's like, these are people that are, I mean, my team, for example, is a lot of younger people on my team, on my actual sales team. Right. And these are people that are young and hungry. And those people are hard to manage sometimes. I mean, we call it the bullpen, right? You look at a bullpen, a typical bullpen, a lot of testosterone, right? A lot a lot of young guys, good guys, a lot of Christian guys out there, and I'm Christian myself, and we run a very well-oiled machine, but you are managing people at the end of the day, and it can be very difficult. The number one thing I see when people try to scale a wholesale company is they can't figure out the people part of it. It's like they've got the system figured out. They know they're like, I'm either doing direct mail or I'm doing PPC or PPL or lead kitchen or whatever I'm going to do, or I'm going to talk to agents or I'm going to co-wholesale or whatever, right? But they can't scale that because they can never figure out how to build the right culture with the right people, with the right structure so that their people actually stay there working. Right. And they don't churn people just over and over and over again because you're never going to get anywhere like that. Right. And I did that for a long time. I only know because I've been through it, by the way. I've made every mistake you can make. And so, but look, if you build a good team, I believe. Now, I'll also say that I think wholesaling, like, so for me, when I look at and I just sat down with somebody that I could tell you off camera and you would know who I'm talking about. But I've had a lot of conversations. I think that wholesaling is not infinitely scalable. Okay. I think there's 100% a ceiling where you just and I think the number is 15 million a year.
Okay.
I think at 15 million a year, you're tapped out. You're not going to wholesale. You're not going to. I don't care how good of an entrepreneur you are. In my opinion, you're not going to get past 15 million a year. Look at Keegley. I know all the owners of every big company that there is. Everybody agrees 15 million a year is the number. Some people think it's 10 million a year, but million a month, right? Wholesaling. Just past that, because you got to remember, out of 150 million homes or whatever there are in America, I think it's about that many. Only what would you say, 5 to 10%? Do you know how many people are motivated, like they would take a cash offer at any given time?
Well, what's funny you say that is I was like making this analogy the other day. I'm like, all these wholesalers are going after distressed sellers, which I would say are different than motivated sellers, right?
Yep.
And so I'm like, out of the amount of distressed sellers there are, maybe 1% of homes are actually distressed, meaning they're in foreclosure, they're late, they got liens, they got whatever, right? The rest of the 99% of homes, or let's just say people who are in the market to sell, they're motivated to sell, but they ain't distressed. And so those people are ending up on Zillow.
Yep.
They're ending up on all these different things. And like, as wholesalers, we spend so much time chasing after the 1%, but that's small, to your point. Like the 1% is extremely small. But if you could somehow capitalize on the 99%, well, then, your possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And so I think things like novations, things like, just listing, like that would be how you would scale past it.
Yeah.
Because there's just, to your point, there's not enough sellers.
There's not to get deeply discounted deals over and over and over again.
Exactly.
Right. But to your point, you either need, and I've always said, you can get a distressed seller or a distressed house or both, right? Like, because a seller can be just distressed, meaning like they inherited it. And by distressed, I mean like motivated, to your point, right? Like they inherited, they don't care about it, they don't want it, they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Or somebody died, or like whatever, like they got a divorce, I don't know, like something happened, like job relocation, they lost their job, who knows? And the house might be in perfect condition.
Yeah.
Right? Like we talk to people like that all the time where you look at the pictures of the property and you're like, dude, why don't you just list it on the market, right? But the actual person who owns it, they can't list it on the market for whatever reason, right? The house itself could go on the market, but the human being that owns that property, they don't have the time. They need it gone. They want that convenience. They don't want to walk a bunch of people through the house for whatever reason. We've dealt with that a lot, right?
Yep.
And they're willing to take 20% less in their pocket to have the convenience of cash.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I think Lead Kitchen's going to dominate.
Yeah. Well, and also too, what I've realized, so now we've generated thousands of leads at this point. And so I have not only our own team's feedback, but also all of our clients' feedback. And the big opportunity that I have found is that, as you know, any marketing you do, like let's just say 9 out of 10 of them, we're talking inbound leads specifically. In my mind, they're motivated because they want an offer. They want to sell their home, but they're not distressed, which is a different thing in my mind of like, they're not dealing with a death, a probate, a foreclosure, or whatever, right? They're just like, yo, I want to sell. And yeah, it would be nice not having to use a realtor. It would be nice to do this thing quick, but I'm not distressed, but I'm going to sell this one way or the other, right? And I think wholesalers can't get those people who aren't like truly distressed. They're just like, yeah, I want to sell. It'd be nice to sell it quick, but I ain't going to take a 20% haircut to do it, right? I'll just list it. It's not that big of a deal. And like for us now, half of our deals are novations because we're taking those people and we're like, all right, dude, you're motivated. Okay, cool. But you don't want to work with realtors, right? Because we all know realtors suck, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, well, what if we could get you that price you want and you still don't have to deal with realtors? We'll deal with everything. And they're like, oh, that'd be great. And we just tell them, it's like, yo, it's going to probably take 60 days, 90 days. We can't give you cash tomorrow, but we can still give you what you want in terms of convenience and ease of use. You don't got to deal with negotiating commissions or repairs. We'll do all that. And they're like, oh yeah, like I'm down with that. So I think we're like starting to tap into a new market of sellers that are in between a cash offer and a listing. They're like, yo, like they're in this middle ground and nobody's really going after them.
I love that. Yeah. And you're guaranteeing that. What I love about innovation is that they're guaranteed a net number to them.
Yep.
Right. So like they know going into it, not only are they guaranteed that net number, that they know, they feel like, okay, my mortgage is $100,000, my payoff, I'm guaranteed $200,000. So I'm going to put $100,000 in my pocket. And you handle everything. Yep. You freaking do all I don't want to do nothing. Like
exactly.
They literally don't even want to sign the closing docs.
No. And it's funny because people listening always ask me like, why would a seller do that? You're going to list it anyways. Yeah. Why would a seller? I'm like, because sellers, they're irrational. They don't want to deal. I go, why do you trade in your car? Like, trading in your car, you could get more trying to go sell it yourself. You could like list it and wait and whatever, but trading it in is just easy.
Yeah.
And the dealership's going to take care of everything for you and you don't have to do anything else. And by the way, you'll also get your next car right then and there and it's all going to happen seamlessly.
They'll pay off the loan for you.
Yeah. They'll get you financing on your next deal. Like everything about it is simple.
It is. Yeah. And you know that they're making money and you're okay with that because it is a win-win. It's the classic win-win.
Yep.
Right. It's like, hey, I'm winning and you're winning and therefore this is a good deal.
And that's what you and Zillow are doing.
Yep.
You guys are winning together. Your team works with you because they're winning together. And so like, I think the key with all this is that people just need to realize, how do you make another person win?
Yeah.
If it fits into your business model and the person you're dealing with wins, then you're good.
100%.
Just do more of those.
Yeah. How do you do more of that? Yeah. And that's what we do, man. And I think you got to do that at every scale, right? You look at every company that you own or I own, everything's got to be a win. Your employees, the people you hire, it's got to be a win-win, right? Like, how are they incentivized? How are they going to achieve their goal and their dream by being a part of Pineda Company or being a part of whatever, And then how are you going to win, of course? And so you're always trying to figure out, in every area and aspect of business, in my opinion, it's always got to be a win-win. If you're going to partner with somebody and do a business together, why are you partnering? Are they good at something you're not good at?
Yeah.
Right? Like, are they the yin to your yang? Like, are they an integrator and you're a visionary, or what's going on here? Or are two visionaries partnering together? Like, that's probably not going to turn out well, right? It's not a win-win.
Yeah.
Both people bring the same thing to the table.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I think people just have to start looking at that in every decision that they make.
Yeah. I had David Meltzer on last week, and we were talking about this, and it's interesting because we were talking about the cost of acquiring customers is getting so high. Basically, leads are getting expensive. And, he wasn't even talking about real estate. He was talking about just for every business in general, leads costs are going up. And he goes, what I think has to happen now is there has to just be more brand collaborations to justify the cost of these leads. And this actually goes even deeper than this, right? It's like, okay, in real estate, rental properties, they don't cash flow just normally. And so what are people doing? They're trying to find innovative ways to make it cash flow. They're like, let's rent by the room. Let's get, 5 people in this house now. So now it cash flows. And then everybody gets a better deal. They don't have to rent their own house and pay all the utilities. They can get into a nice house in a decent area, at $700 a room or whatever the case is, right? So you basically see all these people coming together to all benefit from this asset. And, he basically was saying that with now what he wants to do with his brand and events. He's like, dude, for me to go fill an event, for me to go, set up this thing, it's going to cost me so much money by myself. He's like, so I partnered with the Napoleon Hill Foundation and he basically got the rights to license Napoleon Hill's brand and his name and their email list. Now, like the team, he has to pay royalties to Napoleon Hill in his foundation, but his brand is so big, Napoleon Hill's, that now he can say, hey, this is the Napoleon Hill Mastermind. This is the Napoleon Hill top 10 list or whatever the case is. He's like, you and I could throw an event together under Napoleon Hill. That's what he's telling me. I was like, so we could create like Think and Grow Wealthy. And he's like, yeah, we could literally do that.
Yeah, that would be cool, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but he was like, long story short, right? Napoleon Hill's foundation has this massive brand and they don't know what to do with it. I'm willing to put in the work and utilize it and do everything for them. So now we have a win-win.
100%.
Right. And I saw that Rich Dad Poor Dad is doing that with another guy. And so, they have a win-win now. And then, people have been talking about collaboration forever, but it's like, you're already doing it. You're looking at Keith and you're like, yo, let's come together and maybe we can cut costs now.
Yep.
We both don't need transaction coordinators. We both don't need to do this. Like, let's combine our costs now. And, it's just like, that is how businesses are going to be able to compete and combat these rising costs of everything.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And a lot of it's just like inflation, and just the state of the economy, right? And it's just like, everything's expensive. I mean, like, people aren't really making that much more money than they were a couple years ago, but eggs are,
everything costs way more.
Way more, right? So yeah, how do you combat that? And I think that, dude, like, we're in one of the most competitive industries on planet Earth. Like, to my knowledge, every business that you own and every business that I own, like, we do what everybody does, right? And so, like, how do you stand out? How are you different? How are you gonna do it bigger and better than that guy over there? Because he's doing the same thing you're doing.
Yeah.
But I agree, dude. And that's really cool too with the Napoleon Hill stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's an innovative way to like capitalize on their brand and everything else. Because doing it all yourself's hard.
Very hard.
Like it's taken both of us a long time and lots of money and millions to build a brand and to go through all the mistakes, like you mentioned, to get to this point.
Yeah.
And so, for somebody who's starting out, it's like, dude, how do I just piggyback off of what somebody else has already done?
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing. It's like people are like, man, should I do for example, right? We were talking about education on your podcast. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be really hard. I think everyone's going out of business. And then, like, sure enough, people are dropping like flies. And I'm like, I think, whenever somebody asks me what they should, like, if they should get into education, I always tell them no. And they're like, well, I'm like, no, I'm just telling you shouldn't. Like, it's so hard to build it from scratch. But think about this, right? If you have a little bit of an audience or you have people who trust you, it's like, just affiliate someone else's stuff. You have no overhead. You have no fulfillment. There's no time that you got to spend. There's not like, just send them over there, go make a cut, and keep doing what you do. I'm like, that will make you more money with less stress, less headaches. And, it's like, I don't care if you send them to me or whoever, but it's like, you would make more money doing that.
But people don't do it.
I know. But that's what this collaboration thing is.
They should do it. Yeah. But it's like my first mentor told me. He's like, Austin, everybody says money won't make you happy, but everybody wants to find out for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And it's that whole idea that, like, you can preach it till you're blue in the face, and people want to do it, man. People want to go experience it on their own. Because I completely agree with you. Like, when we're talking about, like, my wholesaling company, for example, we were talking before the podcast, before we went live, that, I didn't really actually want to even get into education. Like, I built a really good wholesaling company that is going to make 8 figures a year, right? Like, this is, like, unheard of, And so it's like, okay, why would I get into education? Like, and now I'm in education and I'm like, I don't even know if I'll be in it forever. Like, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
But it's just because it goes back to your point. Like, do you want... And the worst thing that people do is that they get into education when what they're doing isn't even working anymore. It's like, you see that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Where people, they did it, they had like one good month, and then they never have another good month again, and then they get an education. And it's like, those people are really doomed to fail because you can't teach it if you don't do it, right? And I really believe in that. I believe that you ought to be doing what it is that you're teaching at a really high level.
Yeah.
But I agree, man. I think education is a tough game. You said it on my podcast. A lot of people are pivoting right now and getting out of it. And I think the whole real estate market's been tough, honestly, in 2024.
Everything about it. Yeah.
Everything. I think a lot of people got crushed in the last couple of years, 2022 through 2024, because everybody thought that they were a big baller during COVID, right? Like 2019 to 2021 and a half, or 20, just coming up on 2022. Like, dude.
The date I stopped being a big baller was June of 2022.
Literally, dude. I mean, everybody thought if you had a pulse You could buy a property and make money. You could do the worst remodel in the world.
Yeah.
Like cut every corner under the sun and make money.
Yeah.
Because the market was appreciating faster than you could even lose your money.
Or you could make mistakes.
Right. And now people have to have skill, right? You have to actually know what you're doing now. And I think it was a huge wake-up call for a lot of people. I think when you look at our industry, I think a lot of people are like, whoa.
And that's what when I was with Ty Lopez, that's exactly what he said about not real estate, but just everything in general. He's like, today, he's like, dude, when I filmed that video, the Lambo in my garage and all this stuff, he's like, do you realize like how little competition I had? He's like, nobody was doing this. He's like, bro, when I started doing like courses and stuff, it was actually very like controversial that you could learn online. Because everybody thought you needed pedigree and degrees and everything else. Like today, people don't believe that. But he's like, back then, they're like, dude, I'm not like, I'll just go to Harvard. I'll go to this thing. And he's over here like, no, actually, you should just probably learn from somebody who's like doing it right now. And, but basically he said today, if you're going to compete online for courses and products, since that's like what he's known for, he was like, your ads better be so good, your landing page, your copy, your product, your funnel. He's like, everything needs to be A.
Yeah.
He's like, if it's not an A, you lose.
Yep.
He's like, but that wasn't the case 10 years ago when I started. He was like, bro, I just needed to actually just put it out there. And
people, wild.
People would buy it.
Yeah. You could be a D and make money back in the day.
But
I agree.
That's the point with real estate.
Yep.
You could have been that way from 2020 to 22. You didn't have to actually be good. You'd make money.
I agree, dude. And that's why I preach. I try to preach from the mountaintop. I'm like, look, like, and I think that there's just something bigger probably going on, with the world that we live in right now and social media. I think we're kind of at a weird tipping point, maybe, where like a lot of the people that saw Gary Vee back in 2010 wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think there's just a lot of people that should never have been an entrepreneur. Like, it's like, dude, you're not an entrepreneur. Like, you might be maybe a solopreneur at best, or you're just like a top employee somewhere. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, that's what I think people need to understand is like, you look at, these big Fortune 500 companies, a lot of times the second or third or fourth or fifth guy in line is making $10 million a year take home, and he goes home at 5:00.
Yeah.
Like, and he doesn't have that stress when he's sitting on his couch at night of the whole company falling apart, and he's number 2 or 3 in line, and they do very, very, very well, and so I just think in general, people probably need to take a good hard look at like, do I really want to do it? Do I really want to be an entrepreneur, man? Because even as much success that I've had, it's hard work, dude. Like, you look at our wholesaling company and our retail, there's always something wrong. There's always a fire. There's always a problem. Something happened. This guy quit. That guy's suing us. Like, you know what I mean? It's just part of the game, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be able to handle that on a day-to-day basis for your entire life, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I love it. So, we're talking about really just collaboration and piggybacking off other people's strengths. So you said that in your wholesale business, you ended up taking on partners on that business too?
Yeah, I have 2 partners in that company.
So what was the reasoning? What did each of you guys bring to the table?
Yeah, great question. So I really am, I'm doing what I bring to the table right now, right? Like, I bring to the table, a lot of what I bring to the table is the ideas, the relationships, the opportunities, the different things that we're going to embark on, right? And I'm not really an integrator. Like if you put a gun to my head and you made me create a Zap or you made me create some type of integration, like I could do it, but it's not my forte, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not an integrator. And I'm really not even a good manager of people to a degree. Like when it comes to like managing, right? Like I am a leader of many, but when it comes to like day-to-day management, I'm actually not that great of a manager either. So
well,
like
visionaries aren't.
No, like I'm either too blunt with people or I'm too nice. I'm never like the perfect balance of like what a manager needs to be, so dude, I'm a visionary. My 2 partners in my wholesaling company, one of them is a really strong integrator, and the other one has a lot of integrator tendencies, but he's a phenomenal manager of people, like a spectacular manager of people. And he's good. He's kind of good at a little bit of what I'm good at too, and a little bit of the integration. So he kind of is able to float a little bit, but he is really the one doing a lot of the management. Yeah.
Okay. So these guys run the day-to-day ops. So, I mean, what's your role in all of this?
Now, doing meetings. I sit in on all the meetings. So any big weekly meeting, monthly meeting that we have, I'm in there. I'm looking at the numbers, I'm looking at the P&L, I'm looking at, okay, how much money did we spend on direct to seller marketing this month? What percentage of our revenue came from that department versus like co-wholesaling or agent outreach department, right? Should we decrease or increase over here? Like if we do increase, what do we increase it on? Do we go lead kitchen? Do we, go do Google Pay? Like what do we do, right?
Yep.
Like really figuring that out at a high level. And I do that by talking to people.
Right.
So like what's working, right? Like, and I wouldn't know that if I didn't have the network that I had, So like now I'm in a place where, I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to pick up my phone, call somebody that is doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like let's say I want to get into TV. I call Doug Hopkins. I'm like, yo, or I call Ryan Pineda, right?
Yep.
I'm like, how's it going? Like talk to me. How is running TV in an election year going for you?
Not good for people.
And so you got to have the right network. But that it really is what I bring, right? I'm the visionary. I open doors. I create relationships. Like whatever that might be, right? Like my buddy, or not my buddy, my VP of sales. He walked in my office.
He can be your buddy too.
He is my buddy. We just hired him actually, so he was kind of like my buddy, and now he's my VP. But
I had by the way, that reminded me of a funny story. I had a guy who, who was this? See, I can't even remember their name because I was so offended. He goes, "Hey, this is Ryan. Oh, you know what? I think it was Omar El Takori. He was like, "Yeah, this is my friend Ryan." Or he's like, "This is my my business friend Ryan." I'm like, "What? I'm not your friend? Like, I'm just like
just a business friend."
Yeah, this is my business. Like, he's my friend from business, Ryan. I'm
That's
like, what does that mean?
Right.
We go to church together. What do you mean we're just business friends?
Yeah.
I was just giving him crap.
So he walks in my office. He's like, "Hey, can we get like?" He wanted to do something with Investor Lift that like you're not technically allowed to do. And I was like, well, let me call Robert, and find out, right? Like I'm homies with Robert. Like I'll bet you he'll say yeah. Like he, like we're really good friends, And so there's like stuff like that, right? And he's like, oh, dude, like that would be amazing. Like if you could like call, it's like he's mind blown that like I can just pick up the phone and do that, and you can do that too, right? At probably even a larger scale than me. You're bigger on the internet than I am. I am about to hit 100K on YouTube though, like tomorrow.
Let's go.
I'm at like 99.7 right now.
By the way, guys, go subscribe right now, and we'll get them to 100K.
Dude,
right now.
You're the man. But yeah, that's what I bring to the table, man. And in the beginning, I brought more to the table. I think, like in the beginning, I forced myself to, and I think we all have to do that as an entrepreneur, right? Like in the beginning, I wore a lot of hats that I probably should have never worn. That I was never really that great at, and you just have to get out of that as quick as you can and delegate that. Because the only way you're going to build a company is if you hire people who are smarter than you.
I'd argue you bring more to the table now. It's maybe not as many hours, but they're more high level things.
Agreed.
Like to your point, right? Like the fact that you can go solve problems at a high level by calling a Robert or calling a Doug or whoever else, like that is a huge deal for the company.
Yeah, it is.
Versus you just closing another sale.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was asking, because I spend most of my time just talking to people and just thinking about things and new innovations and ways to do things differently than everyone. And the only way I figure out things is by talking to other people about what their problems are. And so that's why kind of I knew just different things. Like I was talking about on your show, I'm like, yeah, this is dead. This is dead. It's because I've already talked to enough people who do it at a high level where I'm like, all right, they're going through what I'm going through. Okay, this isn't going to last. All right, so what do we do with that information?
And you kind of get out in front of it.
Oh, way out in front.
Like you said that before.
Yeah.
A lot of that happened.
Oh, I knew, because I knew it was going to happen.
You knew it was going to happen, right? And I remember, and that was a couple months ago, and I actually pivoted. And after we did the podcast, I called my team. I'm like, hey, we're doing low ticket.
we're not going to do what we know is going to die.
And sure enough, dude, like we kept doing obviously what we were doing while we were building the new thing,
Yeah.
And
but you saw it start to.
We saw it just freaking dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
And thank God we had already started building the new thing.
Yep.
So we were already underway, But no, dude, to your point, like that was because you have way more connections in that world than I do.
Yeah.
And so you were my connection, if you will, right? Like you were the guy that kind of told me, and I was able to go take that action. So it really does go to show that, like, back to what you said a little while ago, right? Attention, it really is like the new currency in the world that we live in, right?
Relationships, attention, and it's for whatever's relevant to whatever it is you're trying to do. So it's like, even when I was with Ty Lopez 2 days ago, him and I, he's talking to me about everything that he's doing because it's funny, dude. He's literally running back his same playbook. He got a huge mansion in Bel Air again. He got a Lambo in the garage, and I'm like, bro, is this deja vu? Like, what's going on here?
Is it a Gallardo again, or is it?
He just like I don't even know what it is. I'm not like a huge car guy, and it's just funny. He's like, yeah, dude. I was laughing, like thinking about it too.
Yeah.
But then he was asking me about low ticket. He goes, all right, so explain to me how it works. And so I start explaining. He's asking questions. He's like, okay. But like even him, he's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Because he's just deciding what he wants to do, and he's getting information from lots of different sources. And even with the real estate thing, right? It's like, you start talking to all these big investors, and it's like, all right, how are things going for you? Well, virtually everyone will tell you 2024 sucks.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, why does it suck? Well, my cost of lead is too high. Well, we're not converting the same way. These sellers aren't motivated. And you start to hear the same things over and over and over again. And I'm like, so what are you going to do about it? And nobody has an answer. Everyone's like, dude, I don't know. Just hopefully the market rebounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a good enough answer. If you're just hope, if your solution is hope, oh boy, that's a bad solution.
You're done. You're probably done. A lot of those people are done, right?
Yeah.
And I know people right now, like literally this week. I mean, dude, we just hired somebody 2 days ago. I got a text from another buddy of mine, and he's like, hey, my brother was working for this other big wholesale company in the Valley. You would know their names.
Yep.
And he's like, they're doing terrible, and like they're essentially shutting down shop. Like, and I need to find my brother a new job. Like, can he come work for you? And I was like, yeah, like totally. Like I mean, I'll have to interview him, not me, but somebody on my team. And if he's a good fit, like we'd love to take him. But it just goes to show again, right? Like these are big names that, like, again, if I told you, you would know who they are. That like I just got the inside scoop 3 days ago. They're not doing good, right? Yeah. And these are people that you probably would expect to be doing good.
Yeah.
So it is a weird market that we're in, and a weird world that we live in. But to your point, I think you have to adapt. You have to pivot. You have to be nimble, right? You got to be quick on your feet. I think the best entrepreneurs in the world are very quick on their feet. They can move very fast. Like they can be going that direction in 1 minute and then turn and go that direction, right? And the slower you are to move and be nimble, you're gonna get taken out eventually, because you're not gonna act quick enough to change before you burn through your bank account and you have to shut down.
Yeah,
I've seen it happen too many times.
Yeah,
dude. I mean, I've been around it. I mean, me and Cody Sperber were partners way back in the day, and I watched him go through some tough times, with some different people back in the day.
Yeah,
that just like. He was spending a ridiculous amount of money on ads. And like there was a few months where he's like, dude, like if I have one more bad month, like,
we're done.
Like we're done, right? And this was many, many, many years ago. Cody's a good friend, but it's just like, and so I saw that, dude. I was like, dang, like, so you can't have a bad month. Like,
No.
like you have to act quick enough to be out ahead of the hockey puck.
Yeah. And it's funny. I hate to just keep quoting Ty's episode. We'll link to that down below, but he also says something in that regard. He's like, by the way, Ty's like a walking quote. Like he literally just has quote, like he's made for reels. That's what he's made for. But he basically was like, yeah, I used to back in the day always tell people that entrepreneurship is 80% perseverance and like 20% skill, essentially. It's like, it's just people who don't quit win. He's like, I don't believe that anymore in today's world. He goes, today, entrepreneurship is 20% perseverance, 30% pivoting. He's like, because it's changing too quickly. He's like, the world changes way too fast today, that if you're not nimble and willing to pivot, you're done. He's like, and then it's 50% tech. That's what he said. He's like, pretty much we're entering a new age of entrepreneurship where AI and everything else is basically going to just wipe out. Like those who actually know how to use tech win. Yep. Everyone else loses. And it makes sense, right? Like if you just look at how fast, look at the top 10 companies in the world, right? They represent like literally over half of the market cap of the entire stock market. Yeah. It's crazy because they have the tech.
NVIDIA. Yeah. Look at NVIDIA, dude.
Yeah.
Look at what they did. And look at NVIDIA. Look at the Bitcoin guy. I always forget his name. Michael Saylor.
Yeah.
You look at these different people, it's just wild, right? But NVIDIA is AI. It's all AI. The new trend is AI too, by the way.
Oh,
you know,
for
so,
sure. Well,
like,
that's what he's saying, like tech AI.
Yeah.
Like, and you just think about, and he's like, if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm just thinking about where does AI fit into what I do?
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, like if we're in real estate, there's lots of things we can do with AI. Like, theoretically, some of it's already here, but theoretically, it's like AI could figure out who all the most motivated sellers are. AI can do all your sets and your calls and your text messaging for you. Eventually, AI could probably close deals for you.
Probably.
You know, AI could dispo for you and figure out who are the top people to sell to. Like, it's just like going to change it so much here very quickly. Not like, you know, decades from now, but like much quicker than anyone realizes. And it's like, yeah, whoever figures out how to harness it properly wins.
Yeah.
And there's just like one winner. Real estate investors, I found a brand new way to create cash flow that's better than anything else I've ever done. It's better than rental properties, Airbnb, my flipping business, multifamily. It's the best thing we've done yet. It is building an automated wholesale business. Now you might be saying, Ryan, how do you build an automated wholesale business? Well, what if you had the same exact leads that I get every single month? What if you had a sales script that was so easy to close deals over the phone that you could do it all across the country? And what if you could sell your deals directly on the MLS without a real estate license and without having to actually own the property and getting top dollar? Well, we do that with this new method. And I made an 11-minute video where I go over how it all works, how you can start doing it today. So if you want to go see that video, go to wealthyinvestor.com, go click the case study and see what I'm talking about.
Literally. I totally agree. And I think, yeah, a lot of people are they're not gonna move quick enough.
Yeah.
It's just the truth. They're not gonna do it quick enough. They're not gonna be nimble, pivot, quick enough, like Ty said. And they're going to have to find something else to do. And hopefully a new door opens for them. You know, I never wish bad things to happen to anybody, of course, but...
Well, and it's not like, and I should say people don't lose. It's just like that person who wins like a ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
Like NVIDIA or Meta or any of these guys who have won big, right? There's still lots of companies in the stock market that are worth billions.
Sure.
That they ain't worth $1 trillion.
Right. But $1 billion ain't bad.
But, you know, their 1% is good.
Yeah.
That's literally what $1 billion, you're like, dude, your company's worth $1 billion. It's like, yeah, that's actually 1/1000th of a trillion.
Yeah.
And there's $1 trillion companies.
Yep.
Think
Multi-trillion.
Yeah, think about that.
Yeah.
You know, you got a $10 billion company, which is like insane. These companies are $1 trillion.
Well, they're somewhere floating around out there, they're saying that soon you'll have your first trillionaire.
Yeah.
Like as a human being. Because right now I think it's Elon, 200 billion, 250 billion.
Yeah, I mean.
Or Bezos. They all go back and forth, right? But like they're like $250 billion.
Yeah.
Because none of them own 100% of that, you
Yeah.
know, like Google or whatever, right? Like doesn't Jeff own like 17% of Amazon or something like that?
Yeah, him and Elon own less than like 10% at this point.
Yeah.
But 10% of multi-trillion.
Right. But you'll have your first trillionaire probably, what do you think, by 2030?
Yeah, probably. With inflation
I would
and
imagine.
how much they print. And yeah, maybe 2030s, we should say.
Sure. Yeah, maybe before 2040, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that person's going to come because of tech and AI and everything. But, you know, anyone listening, I don't like, I'm just talking like huge, big picture. Like people are still going to wholesale.
Yeah.
They're still going to be realtors. You can go make 6 figures and whatever. You could even probably make $1 million just not even messing around with any of this stuff. But there's going to be a wholesaler, whether it's you or me, who does something ridiculous with AI that becomes a billionaire.
Yeah. I agree.
But there's only going to be one. Like that's what it's going to come down
maybe
to.
2 can become 1 and we can partner.
Well, and that's the point, right?
Right.
Like, do you at that, and that's what I was going to bring up too. So it's like maybe you're not going to lose because you're just going to go be absorbed
Sure.
by the winner.
Which is a win.
That's a win.
Right, you know?
You're like, dude, if Zillow wanted to buy us, let's go.
For sure. All day, every day. I invite them if they're watching, you know. Ideally in a year or 2 from now, so we can get a little bit bigger, so we can be worth more money. But no, 100%. I mean, I think you have to be open to that idea, and you're a winner at the end of the day. If you get acquired, dude, you're a winner. Like you know a lot of people. I know a lot of people that have been acquired. Home services right now. That's the one industry, by the way, too. I don't want to get too off topic, but I love that industry. I think it's the last industry that'll get affected by AI.
Yeah.
Because like a robot's not going to come fix your toilet tomorrow.
Right.
I mean, it's going to take a little bit of time before we get there, right?
Yeah.
So
your toilet will be a robot and it'll fix itself.
Right. There you go. So I don't know how to. I can't.
Your
I can't
toilet
combat
will know
that.
when you poop and it'll warm you up. It's like, bro, Ryan always wakes up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I'm ready for them.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
But home services, man, that'll be a good one. I know I have a lot of buddies that have been acquired, and they're huge winners, dude. I mean, like, and then they go start a new thing. Like, they wait till their non-compete's up, and then they either rebuild the same thing they just did over again. I've seen a lot of people do that, or they just start a different thing,
Yeah.
And, but yeah, dude, I mean, real estate's a hard thing to sell, though. Wholesaler, I've never seen a wholesaling company get sold, right? So I
Just we buy ugly houses.
Yeah, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think Eric Klein was saying he sold, but I think he got seller financed by an employee. So, but yeah, I think that's a hard company to sell. Retail team's never been sold either, to my knowledge. So we might be the first. We'll see.
Really?
Yeah.
Because the brokerage is what has the value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And teams always become brokerages at a certain point. Like, it's just the evolution that you see. If like Jason Mitchell or any of the big players, they're like an agent, then they're a team, then they become a broker, and it's just like, that's what they do, right? When they go nationwide. But we're not going to do that.
And the brokerage you're at, it's a downline type brokerage?
It is. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I was with EXP for 3 years. Great brokerage. I have nothing bad to say about them. But we had an opportunity that we couldn't turn down, and I believe it'll be a way bigger and better brokerage in the long term. But again, I have nothing bad to say. This is my third brokerage I've been at, and the two brokerages I was at previously are great, right? But I think LPT, they're doing a lot of things that have never been done before, which is really cool, But we'll see, dude. I mean, Robert Palmer, does that name ring a bell to you?
No.
He got big, I think, in the mortgage world. He's already like probably worth $500 million before he even started LPT. So he didn't need LPT, right? The brokerage we're at now. He did it because he just saw a hole in the market, pretty much, and he's like, "Cool, I'll do it." It's like his third company he'll take public.
Wow.
Right? So he's he's been in the game a long time. Yeah, he had literally nothing better to do, I don't think. And and he just solved a problem, dude. Like, it was the same thing. We were having dinner with him one night, and he's like, "Dude, I didn't even want to start a brokerage." He's like, but there was this problem that other brokerages weren't really addressing. And so he's like, I just did it,
What was the problem?
One of the problems was that you look at EXP and like Real and these different brokerages, right? And I don't want to talk bad about them or get too much into the weeds, but one of the issues is that they're just rev share, right? Yeah. So like if you're an agent and you want to join that brokerage, you're on rev share, which eats into your commission, of course. And so then it's like, in order to not be on rev share, because a lot of people don't care about building a downline.
No.
Like, your average agent, they just want to sell houses, right? Like, they don't care about building a downline. So like, if they don't want to be on that model, they got to go to like HomeSmart, or they got to go to some flat fee brokerage, right? Like, they literally have to leave that brokerage to get what they want, right? So LPT came along and they said, why can't we do both? Why can't we have a flat fee option and a revenue share option, and you can join whichever one you want? They're both different in terms of what split you're giving to the broker, right?
Yep.
And you can switch at any time you want. So let's say you join flat fee and you accidentally put 20 people in your downline. You're not going to get paid on that because you're on the flat fee model, but they'll actually be like, hey, here's what you would be getting paid if you were on the rev share model. And then you could just move to the rev share model, or vice versa, right? Maybe you go rev share, you think you're going to build a big downline.
So
and then
most
you're
people,
like,
I would imagine, start flat fee, and then
almost everybody.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you?
Right.
And then as time goes on, you find out you're good, you switch. That is smart.
Yep. And EXP and other brokerages are going to have a tough time ever, because then the question, of course, is, well, why don't they?
They can just copy.
Why wouldn't they just do that? Problem is, you have shareholders and they have a model that they, now they're $1 billion publicly traded company, right? And if you change that, that's one change that would change the dynamic and the finances of the entire company.
Yeah.
So like, you might not have a company after that, right? If you were to make a change like that,
because
Robert built it from the ground up like that.
Yeah, and they also already have all these agents who are in that would switch to flat fee, and they'd lose money.
That, and then when that happened, all the top people that are making all the revenue share right now would leave, because their revenue share would go from $400,000 a month to $40,000 a month.
Yeah.
So, because there's a lot of people that are making a lot of money in rev share at other brokerages that they literally can't go anywhere because they're making so much money. Why would you leave?
Yeah, they don't. I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah. So that was one big thing, and then Robert's really LPT stands for Listing Power Tools. So he's big in like the listing side instead of like working with buyers.
Got it.
And so he's doing some cool stuff over there with like print marketing and stuff, kind of going old school with it, which is working really well. And they're doing a bunch of different stuff. I mean, just with lead generation, they're helping people with recruiting, just a lot. They're solving just different problems that other people haven't been able to solve, and there'll always be some new thing, right? But we liked Robert, and we really saw his vision with the company, and we said, let's go build it. And we were the first team to launch in Arizona with that brokerage, and so we kind of made a big splash in the industry, and people were like, whoa, because we did a merger, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, you've never really hear of two big teams doing a merger, creating the number one team in the state of Arizona. You have two cultures collide, right? He had staff, I had staff. He had his way of doing things, I had my way, and we do a full-blown merger. And day one, we're like, all right, all you guys got to get along now, right? And so we did that and switched brokerages at the same time, and then did a name change like 180 days later and rebranded the entire company. So it was
sounds like a disaster.
Dude, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare.
That
yeah.
sounds
But
like
we're through it now.
A lot of confusion.
Yeah, we're through it. And I think that's why a lot of people don't make big changes too, right? Because they don't want to deal with the backlash of what that could look like, and that could be bad, right? I mean, you might have a lot of people leave. I mean, if you don't sell the vision properly, we have 150, I think at the time, maybe 170 agents with us at our former brokerage, and you have to tell them why we're leaving.
Yeah.
Like, and they have to kind of buy into why we're leaving, right?
Yeah.
And so you can, you run the risk. Like, you never know when you're about to make a change like that. Like, you never know, like, how's it going to go? Like, is it going to go good, or are we going to lose like 90% of our people, And thank God we kept almost everybody.
That's good.
And we did it very well. And I think, that is the leadership. And I think it's also just like being able to articulate, hey, here's why we're doing what we're doing, right? Here's why this is good for you and not just good for me. Right, like here's going back to the win-win. Right, here's why it's a win for you, it's a win for us, and if you do it right, I think anybody can do it, but it can be very difficult.
Yeah,
yeah.
No, I agree with you. So let's talk about social media. You talked about your YouTube channel, now about to hit 100K. I was on your podcast. Everything looks great, super highly produced. Everything's looking awesome. For you, I guess, what's like the main reason for doing it? And because you got these teams and everything, and I don't think you necessarily have to do social media as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a really good question. It's a question that I'm actually currently trying to figure out myself. Like literally, up until this point, I did social media because I always saw how it impacted the companies that I was building, even when other people didn't see it. Like I could see that door that it opened, that it led to that guy walking into my life, and then that guy, and then that guy, and then that led to like wherever it is today, right? And so I always saw this connection of like, okay, I made a video, I put myself out there, I got loud on the internet, and it resulted in that happening in my company, right? And so that's why I did it for a really long time. It's why I probably still do it to this day, right? I don't make money we make a few grand a month maybe on YouTube or whatever, right? But like, I lose money on the front end of like ad revenue, right? Like we're not profitable on ad revenue,
right?
Because obviously, as you know, it costs a lot of money to run a media company.
Yep.
We have 5 full-time people, so lose money there, but the companies make money as a result of it. As I get bigger, I have to now decide, and I'd love to hear what you think. Like, why do you do what you do? And I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just to continue to build the companies and continue to build the relationships. I mean, the attention can't be a bad thing ever. Right?
Yeah.
Like the only way it could be bad is like, oh, the opportunity cost of my time, it would be better spent if I did that over there, right? Whatever it might be. So that would be the only reason that I wouldn't do it, is if it ever got to a point where I'm like, okay, content's consuming 90% of my time, and I could be building the next $1 billion thing over here, but I can't do that if I'm doing content. Then it would be like, all right, I'm at a fork in the road. What do I do?
Yeah.
As of right now though, dude, I think it's just like, how many eyeballs can I get? And then how many eyeballs can I convert into any one of my companies? So like, come join my team, come be an agent, join my wholesale team, do deals with us, come into our low ticket program, come into our coaching program, sell me your house. Like however we can do business together right now is why I do social media.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just for the doors that it opens and everything else.
Yeah.
Because how long have you been not trying, but how long have you been doing it?
So I've been on Instagram since 2013. So Instagram is my main platform. I wish I would have got on YouTube a lot sooner than I did. I kind of regret, I think I did it in the wrong order. I think I probably should have tried to get big on YouTube first and then IG, because YouTube is the hardest, right? Like without a shadow of a doubt, like no question, you have almost 400K?
Yeah.
So, I'm about to hit 100K. I'm 25% of you, right? And so, dude, and it was a grind to get to 100K. I'm like, bro, 400K is like, feels like quite a ways away. But, yeah, I think Instagram I've been doing for a really long time. I like Instagram and I hate it at the same time. I have a love-hate with that platform, with Meta in general, But yeah, dude, about a decade, I would say. I mean, I got on YouTube in 2015. I got on Instagram in 2013.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think my point with all that is, you've been at it for a long time, and obviously it's paid dividends for your company and everything else. And a lot of people, they try it for a couple of months or 6 months, and they're like, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, I mean, try it for 6 years.
Yeah. Well, I met Lewis Howes, and you know him, I know very well. And the first time I met him, I asked him, I said, dude, if you could just give me one nugget, like, it's all I want, just one nugget. He's like, interview 3 people a day for 3 people a week for 10 years straight. That's what he said.
Yeah.
He's like, interview 3 people a week for a decade, and you'll be where I'm at.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. Good deal.
Pretty simple.
I was like, I can do that.
You're like, is there a way to do it faster?
Right. But it goes to show, right? Like it just, there really isn't a way. It's like the one thing, in my opinion, that you can't shortcut. Because even like the Cody Sanchez's of the world and the Hormozis, it feels like they came out of the woodworks and got big. But the thing is, Hormozi had already sold a 9-figure company. Cody Sanchez had already bought all these companies and done all these things. So when they got onto YouTube, day one, they could afford to have the best media team in the world. They could afford to have the best content. And they already had the knowledge and wisdom to share with the world.
Yeah.
Where a lot of content creators get wrong, I think, is that or maybe not wrong, maybe it's just like, hey, there's just 2 different ways to do it. But it's like they get into content at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. So like they're making content as they're growing and figuring it out themselves. So you're not going to grow as quickly as a Hormozi if you're doing that, because Hormozi day one already had the knowledge.
Yeah.
He already knew what he was doing.
I think even with him, a lot of people don't know, but he's been doing social media since like 2016.
Okay. Yeah.
And so
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, he's been he was doing Facebook posts, he was doing Instagram, he was doing everything for literally 5 years.
Wow.
And I've heard him talk about it before. He's like, dude, I started my podcast in 2017. And he's like, it didn't do anything for 4 years.
Yeah.
And he's like, and then, I sold, and then that's when things started to go. And I think, to your point, selling had a lot to do with it. It gave him more credibility. It made him smarter. He had capital. He had all the tools necessary. And also, too, he had the commitment to go do it. Because really where he learned a lot from was Russell Brunson. And even Russell, Russell is basically like the paid ads king. Like Russell, he was sitting right where you were, and he was like, yeah, dude, I mean, I regret not doing more organic the last decade. He's like, I was always the paid ads guy, and in hindsight, I should have did way more organic. But, we were so good at funnels and ads that I just knew I could instantly make money with paid ads. And so that's all he did. And, Alex will tell you too, he was the same way, because he came up from that era, and they're all just like, bro, like, we can make instant money with paid ads. And they were. But now the game has changed, where you have to have both paid and organic to be successful.
Yeah.
Like, if you're anyone listening, if you're a real estate investor today, I don't care if you're a savage doing hundreds of deals a year. If you have no following and you tried to start coaching today and running paid ads, it ain't going to work.
Yeah, you're going to fail.
Yeah, because they'll see your ad and like, who the heck is this guy?
Yeah.
You have to have already like established content and everything else. Like your business track record, it matters, but it doesn't matter if you have nowhere to send people.
Yeah, people don't know who you are, right? Like 100%, dude. So the people who run, which we talked about before the show, who run the back end of like all of our paid stuff, they actually just told me like a week or two ago, they're like, because I asked them, I was like, how do you like determine who you're going to work with and who you're not going to work with, right? And they're like, well, it's changed over time. And they said exactly what you said. They're like, nowadays, they're like, if they don't have a big organic following, we won't run paid for them. Like,
It'll fail.
We won't even offer. Like, they're like, we just won't do it, because they already know it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
They're like, they literally have to be like, at least have like 100K on any of the platforms. So whether it be TikTok, IG, or YouTube.
Yeah.
In order to even like be a client of theirs.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a crazy thing, right? And like, they know what they're doing. They work with all the big people. And so 100%, dude, I think that now more than ever, you have to have a brand. Because the best paid ads in the world are just retargeting. people that have already seen your organic.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're really being honest, right? It's like if you have a massive, like it's not hard for Diary of a CEO or Lewis Howes or Joe Rogan or somebody to retarget one of the people who just watched a 3-hour podcast.
Well, the other part of it too is, so obviously we do retargeting, but we do a lot of cold targeting too, because, you know, I need to expand, and Cardone taught me this, like you have to always be expanding your pond. So if you're only retargeting, your pond doesn't grow. You're just hitting the same pond over and over again. And at some point, you'll catch all the fish.
Yeah.
He's like, so the pond has to keep growing. He's like, so cold plays into that. But the thing is, cold doesn't convert right away. Cold has to become warm in order for it to convert. And so, you know, we run cold and we keep making the pond bigger and bigger and bigger. And guess what? Those people that join the pond don't buy right away. But now they're in the pond, and then they start getting content. They start watching podcasts and videos. And like, all right, you know, yeah, he's got colored hair or whatever, but he seems like he might be an okay guy. Let's try going to an event. Let's check out one of his free things. You know what? I'll try the Wealthy You thing for $3. What do I got to lose? And so that's the whole point, is like get awareness and then nurture. And that's the game. It used to be like when Ty Lopez was doing it, even when Grant and Russell and Alex were all doing it in the mid 2010s, it used to be, well, there were no organic content guys making all this stuff. So all people saw were ads. So you see Ty Lopez in his garage or Russell talking about this new way to sell online. You're like, I don't know who this is, but that sounds cool, because there's nothing else to do.
Right.
And you're like, I'll buy that.
Dude.
And you know, they have an evergreen webinar for an hour and people are like, I've never heard of this before. Boom. But now it's like, yeah, I know what wholesaling is, Ryan. Like you can't trick me into some new thing that I've never heard of.
For sure. Yeah. It's like, who are you?
Yeah.
And why you?
Well, and
over everybody else.
Here's the other part. It's not even just everyone else. It's not even just you and me of like trying to get real estate people. We're actually also competing against other opportunities. And so it's like, okay, hey, I'm a new kid. I'm thinking about making money. Well, I'm looking at real estate. I'm looking at, you know, Airbnb. I'm looking at, you know, stock trading. I'm looking at, you know, Ryan, you said you were flipping couches. I'm looking at that option. So they're looking at every option as an entrepreneur. And that's like why it becomes harder and harder.
Yeah. Dude, I agree with that. I've literally made like short form content just about that, right?
Yeah.
Talking about, we live in an era now where, like the 18-year-old entrepreneur, wannabe entrepreneur, they're watching everybody. Like they're almost taking in way too much information.
Way too much.
Right? Like they're watching everybody and it all works. Here's the issue. Is everything you just mentioned, it all works. You just can't do it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't all work at the same time. You can't do it all. It doesn't mean that Airbnbs don't work. It doesn't mean stock trading. Ricky Gutierrez.
Yeah.
Stock trading works. Ricky's a good buddy of mine. I've known him forever, right?
Yeah.
Clearly it works. Like Ricky, I have a pretty good idea of how much money he has in the bank, and it's not a small amount of money, right?
Yeah.
So, it works. You know, Tim Sykes, right? I had him on the podcast. He's trading penny stocks. Like he's saving elephants right now, probably in somewhere in the world, you know? And so you look at all these different industries and they all work.
Yeah.
But I think people have to decide, which one do I want to do? And then which one, to your point, am I going to stick with for 5 years, 10 years, right? And can I be disciplined enough to not go back and watch that content? Once I commit and I say, hey, I'm going to get into wholesaling. Yeah. Now you got to be disciplined, because now you made a commitment. You can't then in 6 months from now be like, I think I should have done stock trading.
I knew I was a stock trader. This isn't working. Stocks are going to be way easier.
Yeah. And they're not. And they're not, dude. None of it. I don't think that when I really, and I'd love to know what you think, when I look at every industry, because we both have friends in every one of them, right? None of them are easier than the other. Like when it comes to just level of difficulty, right? Like if we made it all a game and we were like, okay, there's 0 to 10 difficulty, you know, like they're all the same in terms of difficulty, in my opinion. I don't think that any one of them is easier. I think they require different skill. Like being a stock trader, I could never do that. Yeah. Like I watch Ricky and I'm like, dude, you are the most consistent human being I've ever met in my entire life. Like it doesn't matter if he's in London, it doesn't matter where he's at. He's trading when the market opens in the US every morning, Monday through Friday, like no matter what, like clockwork for a decade. Like I'm like, dude, that is wild to me. Like, you know, and he's disciplined, right? Like he goes in with large sums of money. You know, it's like something I don't have that skill set. I wouldn't have the ability to do that. Yeah. I think it's also recognizing, what are you good at and what are you passionate about to some degree. You might not be passionate fully about said thing, but like as long as you're good at it, I think being good at it is enough, or having the potential to be good.
Yeah.
You know?
I think like to your point, very analytical people could go and trade, Forex or stocks or crypto or whatever it is. If you're very personable, extroverted, then that's probably not going to be for you, but you'd be a great salesperson.
Yeah.
And then I think there's very creative people who love video and edits and all those things. They can make great content creators. And, you don't have to be a content creator who talks about business. You can just be a legit just entertainer and somebody who makes great videos and whatever. So yeah, I agree with you on that. It's it's a whole new ball game. And I think the important thing is, for me anyways, I would want to go, if I was starting out, and I do this in business today anyways, but I would want to go where the trends are going. So I would pick based on, like you mentioned that they're all just as hard. And I agree, in like a normal environment, they're all just as hard, but the environment around us always is changing. So it's like real estate was not just as hard 2 years ago.
True.
Like real estate, you could just wear a blindfold and you'd make money. And it's like, this is not hard at all. Just buy something and flip it and do its thing. People are buying all over the place. But today, the last 2 years, real estate would have been harder than almost all of them.
Probably.
And, now we're entering a new environment. And it's like, we'll see. We'll see kind of where that goes. But yeah, it's like the trends always are changing. And as an entrepreneur, we have to, and that's the bad part about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You have to take bets on where you think things are going to go.
Yeah. And you got to figure out too, if you do pick an industry and you start having success, is there a way to pivot within your industry without changing the industry? Right? Because I think a lot of people, like, the market changes around them, everything you just said, right? And their solution is, I'll just leave the industry I'm in and go become an insurance agent and try to be the next PBD or whatever, right? And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, you have like 5 years of real estate experience. Like, real estate. You don't know anything about insurance. Why would you walk away from the industry entirely? Maybe you just need to change something about what you're doing. Like, maybe now's not the time to flip luxury.
Yeah.
Maybe now's the time to flip $300,000 condos, like, or whatever, right? Like, maybe you just have to pivot within your industry. Like, there's been a lot of times where I've actually shut down direct to seller marketing in my wholesale company. And we've just done co-wholesaling and agent outreach in terms of acquisition strategies, right? Because we're just like, hey, direct mail's not working in that market right now. Or like, pay-per-click, like, we're not really making money right now, right? Or whatever the case might be. And then we'll try again later, you know what I mean? And we'll try it different that time. We'll say, okay, we got to target different people. Or we got
marketing is always changing. Yeah. To your point, like, is TV a great bet right now with the election? Bro, I don't even want to know what the lead cost is right now. Like, I stopped doing it earlier this year, but like, it's a lot. It'd be a lot right now.
Yeah, and you would never start in an election year.
No.
You have to keep going because you've been doing it forever. So now it's just like, you're not going to quit during an election. You're going to push through because you've seen it, what it can be prior to that. But you would never get involved in 2024.
Right.
Even Doug told me that, dude. I called Doug. I was like, because I actually do want to get into TV. Yeah. He's like, call me in January of 2025. You know what I mean?
Don't do it.
He's like, don't talk to me about it right now. Yeah. He's like, you don't want to do it. Like, he was just looking out for me, Yeah. He's like, I wouldn't even let you try to do it right now. He's like, I'd be a bad friend if I told you to get into it right now. He's like, even if I was going to make a profit on you, he's like, I wouldn't tell you to do it right now.
Right.
I was like, cool, dude. I appreciate the advice.
All right, so I want to transition a little bit and talk to you a little bit about faith. I know we kind of got deep into it on your episode, and I know that your faith journey has been really interesting, so I'd love to hear more about it.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I love talking about this, actually. So growing up, I grew up with my grandpa and grandma. I'll keep this really short, by the way. But I grew up with my grandpa and grandma. They believed in God. I was always a believer in God, right? But I never had a relationship with him. I never had, like, that actual intimate relationship. I never knew who he was, right? It was just like, if you'd have asked me as a kid, like, hey, do you believe in God? I'd be like, yeah, I believe in God. Like, I'm a Christian, But like with my grandparents and stuff, like, they're amazing human beings, but they just never really went to church. Like, it was just like, I don't know, like their generation or whatever, like they'd watch it online. They would kind of like get into the Bible here and there, but like, so like it wasn't until actually I was about 18 and my buddy invited me actually to Impact Church, which I introduced you to Travis, right?
Yep. Yeah, he's coming, I think maybe this month.
Yeah.
He might be coming in like a week.
In the next week or so. Yeah, you're going to love him.
Yeah.
Travis is an amazing human being. He has an incredible story. He just had a stroke coming up on, I think, 2 years ago. he's writing a book. He's going to do some really cool stuff. So I got invited to Impact Man like literally a decade ago. It's so crazy. And they were this tiny church in Scottsdale, right? Like 200 people maybe at the most, like would attend on a whole weekend, right? And I fell in love, dude. I was like, wow, like this is really cool, you know? And so I started volunteering. I started ushering. Probably about 3 or 4 months after that, I ended up getting baptized. So it was like my own decision. I got baptized. I was super pumped about that. And then I just started getting plugged in, you know, with in the Word of God, but then also just with the church family and the community around me, right? I got plugged in with like young adults. I got plugged in at that time with Bible study, like men's Bible study. I got plugged in with everything. And then I started going on mission trips with Impact Church. So I went on, you know, I was going to Nicaragua, right? And we were building houses down there and having a good time. And that was changing my life and of course, the people's lives that we were down there to help. And it just like grew over time, you know, and it hasn't been linear. I don't want to like sit here and be like, my walk has just gone from like here to here. It's been a straight line. Like, no, there's been times where like I've fallen off in the last decade. And I don't mean like falling off like I went and binged cocaine or whatever. Like, I just mean like, you know, there's a couple, like probably a year where I didn't go to church as much. You know, it wasn't for any reason other than it's like that bonfire effect, right? Like I got far away and then you get busy and you make excuses and you're like, oh, I'll go next Sunday, you know? And it's just like, you know, that continues to happen. And then one day you just snap out of it. You're like, no, like I got to make it a priority. Like I got to wake up and get in the Word. Like I've got to make it a priority. If I don't make it a priority, nobody's coming to do it for me.
Right.
You know, so it's been a journey. But being an entrepreneur with the relationship with God, with our Creator, right? Versus like doing it on your own is like, I would never recommend that somebody tried to navigate this crazy world without having faith.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, when I was at your office, I had just, I think I had just filmed with Mark Driscoll, or I was going to, I can't remember if I had already done it or not.
You'd already done it. Yep.
I'd already done it. So like, it was cool to hear just like, you know, what he was doing out there in Phoenix and Scottsdale and everything else. But,
and Mark and Travis, they're friends. So I'm sure you guys will dive deep into all that.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think from you, just watching you over the last, maybe year or so, it feels like, you're starting to get even deeper in faith versus even before.
Yeah.
Like what's sparking that?
I think you get to this certain point, man, where like, you know, once upon a time, right? I mean, I grew up in a garage, you know, so like I really didn't come from anything, you know, like my grandpa and grandma didn't have a lot of money. Like my grandpa owned a pool company. He still cleans pools to this day. He's 87 years old, right?
You grew up in Arizona?
I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Born and raised. And, you know, so like, and as a kid, you know, my dad made a lot of money, but I didn't grow up with my dad. And he was the most conservative. He's like Dave Ramsey and like Warren Buffett had a baby. That'd be my dad. And he drives like a 1975 Toyota Camry with 500,000 miles, you know? So like, I think when I was a little kid, I just wanted to make a lot of money. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like that was like, I just wanted the Lamborghini, you know, I wanted to make a lot of money. And that was my driving force, you know, from probably 16 years old till, you know, like even in the beginning of my walk. Right. And then it was like, I did that. And I traveled the world. I've been to like 25 countries. I had 2 Lamborghinis. I bought an Audi R8. I lived in the penthouses.
Why'd you have 2 Lamborghinis?
Well, not at the same time.
Oh, okay.
Different time. The Huracan. I bought Cody Sperber's Huracan, and then I bought a Lamborghini Urus a few years later. But then it got to a point where I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I'm not actually that fulfilled. Like, you know, like none of this actually did it for me. You know, like it's cool. I can like cut a check and solve a problem a lot of the time, but like I don't actually. And so then here's when it hit me. I compared it, right? And I don't know if this is good or bad. This is just what I did. But I said, okay, how did it feel to like drive the Lamborghini and accomplish all the like worldly stuff? Okay. And then I would go on like a mission trip. And I would think about, and I would like literally notate it down. I'm like, how do I feel when I'm serving other people? Yeah. When I'm in the Word of God, when I'm praying, when I'm around other Christians, when I'm doing that, right? And I literally compared the feeling of having stuff versus like serving other people, being completely selfless.
Yeah.
So it was like selfish versus selfless.
Yeah.
Right. And there was not even a comparison to be made.
Yeah.
You know, and that is when I said, I'm going all in. Right. And I'd like to think that now I'm more all in than I've ever been. I mean, I'm still not perfect. I'm not even close, obviously, and I've got a lot of work to do. And I want to grow even more in my faith. I want to get louder about it, like you, with the Wealthy Way and Wealthy Kingdom, and everything that you're doing is really inspiring. I told you that when you're on my podcast. And I want to figure out how I can minister in what I've built even more.
Yeah.
And like, what does that look like? And what is the evolution of that? And so I'm praying about it. I'm trying to figure that out, and simultaneously we're growing the companies, and we'll see where it all ends up, dude. But I mean, I'm telling you right now, like having faith and being a man of God or a woman of God, if you're somebody watching, it's just like, try it out, like test it, try it on, like for people that are like on the fence about like, oh, like maybe somebody's never been to church or whatever, it's like, just go with a friend, go with somebody, and just like see for yourself, like you're never going to know until you know,
right.
And I think a lot of people, they just watch from afar and they never take that step to actually go, right? And it's just like, get your butt in gear, go do it.
Yeah.
So
what do you think about, your life to this point, right? I mean, you've had a lot of success, and you realize that the success doesn't really fulfill you, right? And I've talked about this before. It's like, I'm driven. I'm always going to want to get better. Like, it's not like I want to be a bum, but I don't feel any different having money versus not. And it's like, the more I just, and it goes back to, you got to try it first, right? Because until you actually have the experience to say, yeah, actually, I did it. I bought the Lambo. I bought the thing. I built the thing. It still didn't it didn't fill the hole that I was feeling. And now it's just like this balance of like, all right, I know what fulfills me. I know what I need to do. But, God still put me on this earth to do these other things as well. How do I start helping all those people know that truth way sooner and not just chase a goal that doesn't really matter?
Yeah. How do you do that? Because I mean, it goes back to what I said a little while ago, right? Like one of my first mentors ever, he said, Austin, everybody says money don't make you happy, but everybody wants to find out for themselves.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you just, I guess you just do our part, right? You just do our part. We get loud about it. We talk about our journey, our faith, our experience, and you just hope and pray that somebody listening will hear you. And instead of them having to go do it and find out for themselves, they'll just do it right now.
Yeah, I think from my experience, because I've been leading Bible studies and other things for a really long time now. So I've seen a lot of guys' lives changed. I've seen a lot of guys come and go. A lot of people get really, bought in and then fall away. So I've seen like every type of person you can imagine. And, I think the first step is just getting somebody to become aware that there's more, right? Because most people aren't even aware. And, how do you get somebody aware that there's more? Well, you don't get it by just talking about it and telling them about it. You get it by just truly living it. And so, the Bible talks to us about how people are going to know us by our fruit. We're to be a light. We're to be the salt of the earth. And it's like, that means we should look very different than everyone else. And people should look at how we live our lives and the fruit we produce and say, don't really know what it is about that person, but I want it. I want to know why they have peace all the time. I want to know why their relationship and their marriage is so good. I want to know why, their culture in the office is different. And so, I think it starts with just living it out. And so for anyone listening, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like you have to first get your relationship right and go way even deeper. Like, how do I spend more time in the Word? How do I pray more? How do I serve more at the church? How do I start, just building my own relationship with God first and foremost? Once that happens, the natural byproduct is fruit in the rest of your life. And then the fruit is what attracts. That's broken. That's Satan.
Right. Satan doesn't like you preaching the word.
I know. How did that even happen? Oh, there we go. And then the fruit is what's going to attract all those people to want to learn more about what it is you do. And then that's, where the conversation starts to happen and people have an openness to it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because in the world, our fruit is the Lambo and the money. And we use it for marketing. We're like, yeah, look at the Lambo, join me and my team, join, the coaching, join whatever, right? And that's the world's fruit. And it does attract like those people into saying, okay, I want to know how you did that. But then when we have spiritual fruit, people say, I want to know how you got that because money won't buy it.
Yeah, I agree. There's a gentleman. Do you know Josiah Grimes?
Yep.
Okay. He we'll see. He'll probably never watch this. I mean, I love Josiah to death. Known him forever and ever and ever. And, he was the guy that you're describing in my life.
Okay.
Like, he was the guy that I looked at right around that time when I got invited to church, right? Where I always just wondered. I watched. We were, you know what I mean?
This guy so different?
I'm like, dude, this guy, man, like, he's just so freaking happy all the time. Like, and like, I would watch him like navigate problems and stuff, you know what I mean? And like, he just did it differently than everybody else that I knew,
Yeah.
And I just kept watching and watching and watching. And we hung out a lot. I mean, we went to Australia together back way a long time ago, and so we'd like travel. And I ended up actually taking him to some Mike Todd event a long time ago. And Todd White, not Mike Todd, White with the dreads. And they were doing like baptism of fire, and like it was crazy. People were falling off the stage, and I was like, "Holy crap!" But but dude, he was the guy, right? Where I looked at him, and every time I hung out with him, I would go home, and I would tell like whoever was in my life at that time, like, I want to be like that guy,
Yeah.
And it caused me to ask him. I said, "What is it?" And he's like, "Dude, it's God." He's like, "It's real. It's 100% God," And then we ended up, starting doing Bible study together and all of that. And so I agree with you, man. I think, wow, really powerful stuff. If you can live it, people will get curious around you. Like they can't not.
Yeah.
Like people in your organization, they're like, dude, Pineda, like he's not perfect, but like he handles himself differently.
Yeah.
Like he really does. Like he's like, wow. Like I've seen other entrepreneurs, and so like people start asking those questions, and then you can lead them right to the water.
Yep.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. It's funny as we get like always later in the podcast, just like the life stuff starts coming out. It's like, maybe I want to make that the theme of this podcast going forward. It's like the first hour's business, second hour, the gloves come off.
There you go.
So you're not married, right?
I'm engaged.
Oh, you're engaged.
Yeah.
Okay. When you get married?
Soon.
Okay.
Yeah. Like we should probably, we're going to elope. So we're going to go to the courthouse, sign on the dotted line, and then probably just go to like Italy or somewhere, do a cool photo shoot, that whole thing, Her dad recently passed away. Her brother had passed away a couple years before that. And so we had to move her mom down here because her mom was in Florida.
Yeah.
Because she's originally from Florida. And so we just kind of, and then I've been busy, and it's just been like a lot. So we were like, hey, let's just not do a big wedding. We don't need all that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's just like do this for us. Like, we'll elope, we'll throw a party, invite the people we love and care about. And that'll be that.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
like probably by the end of this year,
I'll
be married. Yeah, for sure. Like we're ready to do it right now.
Wow. How long you guys been together?
4 years.
Okay.
Yep. 4 years in December, actually. So a little under 4 years.
Got it.
Yeah.
So now you're just like, all right, it's game time.
And it was game time day one. Like I knew she's older than me. So I'm 29. My fiance's 35. She'd probably kill me for saying that here, but whatever. She doesn't look 35. She's Persian. She's got like the Persian blood. She looks like, a lot of people think I'm older than her. Anytime we go anywhere, they're like, really? Like when we tell them that, So I'm like, I don't know how to take that. Is that like a diss against me and a compliment to her? But anyways, so it like we're ready, man. And she wants kids, and she's an incredibly strong Christian, which is why I knew day one, right? Our first date was at church.
Yeah.
Our first date was at church. I DM'd her on Instagram because my buddy told me to, because he did a deal. She was like an LOA, like a loan assistant, and my buddy was like, hey, dude, like I worked out with him at the gym at the time, every morning at like 5 in the morning. And he's like, I just did a deal with this like girl, and her banner and her email, like she looks really cute. You know what I mean? I was like, cool. Yeah. So I DM'd her, and she ghosted me for like a month, and then out of nowhere.
By the way, I've never heard of anyone like creeping from a signature on your
signature.
email.
Yeah. So he like shows me, we're like bench pressing. He like, I get done. I literally remember like it was yesterday. I get done. He shows me his phone. And I was like, all right, I'll follow her. She was a private profile, because she's like a really strong Christian, in her faith. And she was a volunteer for girls and stuff like that. And so at the time, I had the Lamborghini Urus. I had this red Lamborghini Urus.
Yeah, she's like, I don't want this guy.
So she tells the story now. And she's like, yeah, I looked at his profile, and like I was like, nope, not in a million years. And then apparently one day she was like sitting on her couch and she was like praying to God, like, hey, when is it going to be my turn to find the right guy?
Yeah.
Like, when is it going to be my turn? And she went through her Instagram, like message requests, like from back in the day. And she happened to click my profile. And that day I happened to be ushering at church. And so I was like, because I always did that. I was always at church, you know, with Pastor Trav at Impact Church. And she saw my story of me at church.
Yeah.
And so she initially DM'd me back and she's like, hey, like, I love that you're an entrepreneur and you're like talking about your faith, you know? And then one thing led to the next. And eventually we met at church and then very quickly we knew, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And so then the plans to have kids soon. And
yeah, because she's right there, you know, we got to.
Yeah, you got to make moves quick.
I got to make moves.
Dude, your life's about to change.
I know. I'm ready for it though, I think. Yeah. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. Me and Keith were talking about it today. He's like, bro, you're never going to be ready. He's like, he's got to do it.
Yeah. I wonder, I'm going to be curious to watch how like your priority shift.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm curious how it affects like what it is you want to do with the business and everything else. Because I've watched my own life shift. Granted, I got married when we were broke, so I'm in year 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, you know, I got 3 kids, you know, we want to have more. And it's like, you just start running into new problems. Not with the marriage, but just with like what becomes now a problem. So for example, my kids now are ready to go to school. So my son's 5, my daughter's 4, and we have to figure out school. And so it's like, all right, I'm going to like convert half my office into a school and like, just like all this stuff with homeschool because I don't like how any of them are being done. And I'm just like, all right, so that's a whole new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, you start thinking about, okay, when they get older, like what are the next things they got to do? We got to like take them to all these practices and different things. And, you know, that's going to be for the next like 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
But, you know, I also, you know, have a business and everything else that I'm passionate about. And then, you know, we have the ministry and what we're doing with Wealthy Kingdom. And I kind of look at like all these things going on in my life, personally, spiritually, financially. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be reconciled. I don't need the answers today. Like they'll reveal themselves over time, but priorities will definitely shift around. And so it's always, whenever I have guys who aren't married yet or don't have kids yet, I'm always like, I'm curious to see how it changes for you, especially Christians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'll keep you posted on the journey. You know, I know it'll change. You know, look, and it's whatever God wants me to do, man. You know, like his plan, he's got a plan. You know, like we all think we have our own little plan, right?
Yeah.
Like I got my wholesale company and I'm gonna do 8 figures and whatever. It's like, dude, none of that crap matters. Like, you know, who knows where we'll end up, right? But I'm just gonna keep doing what I know that I'm gifted. You know, I'm gonna be a good steward of the talents and abilities that I have.
Yep.
Which is that, you know, I'm pretty good at business and I'm pretty good at leading people and I'm pretty good at talking and being loud. And so I'm gonna keep doing that to the best of my ability until he tells me to do otherwise. And I'm going to be there for my family. You know, when I start this family, you know, I want to be there. Like my dad and my mom weren't there for me, you know? So of course I have that aspect of it too, where for me, you know, like even when I wasn't a Christian, I was always, or like not like really into my walk, like way back in the day, I was always like, one day I'm going to give my kids the life that I never had, you know, because like, that's just, I feel like natural human behavior probably.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to have like a well-rounded family that, you know, like no divorce, like we never use the D word, right? Like nothing like that, because I just wanted my kids to grow up in a household that I wish I would have grown up in.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that'll play a big role probably too in everything that you're talking about for me, which is like, what will that look like? How do because like I'm going to make my life's mission to not do what like happened to me. You know, and obviously it worked out okay for me and everything happens for a reason. I would never change anything. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think you want your kids to have that, like love and affection from their parents and to be in a household where the mom and dad stay together, right? And like get through any challenges that may come their way, you know? And so just different things like that. Like, how do you do that? How do you lead by example? I don't know, dude. I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're going to have kids soon. I wish there needs to be like a school for the parent, I feel like, right? Like we got to get like taught how to do this whole thing.
Yeah, I'm actually reading this book. I'll send you it after. Somebody else gave it to me on one of my events. It's called like Faith Driven Family.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually reading it right now about leading your family and just like raising your kid, because those things I haven't had to think about. I'm like, my kids are right here, like it's all good. But the moment all these other, external factors start coming into play, like, yo, if you're gonna send your kid off to school for 6 hours a day, it's probably pretty important to know who's like molding them. So yeah, like I'm starting to even ponder those questions more now too. How was it, because I actually have talked a lot about this, because I take a lot of pride in being a good dad, because I had a great dad growing up. And my dad was always there for me, every baseball game, just a great serving father. And that's how I've emulated him throughout my life and in my marriage and everything else. And, statistically, people who grow up without dads end up with like the biggest problems. They end up in prisons. Like if you look at like the top, I don't know, I forgot the statistic of like the amount of people that end up in prison, but the majority of them had no dad.
No father figure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And, you see it too with just lots of different, just things with life. So how do you think that fueled you growing up?
Well, look, growing up, I wanted a normal family, what I thought was normal, because I saw my friends, when I was growing up, right? Like I knew that growing up with your grandpa and grandma wasn't normal, so like, and again, my grandpa and grandma are literally the most amazing human beings on planet Earth. They would literally give their shirt off their back for you. They would do anything for another human being. But like, I wanted a normal family. I wanted my mom and my dad to be together, and I tried living with them multiple times. I would go to my dad's for literally a day. I remember this one time I moved all my stuff to my dad's house. Literally, I packed a full trailer full of stuff. I was like 11 years old. My grandpa's like, "Are you sure you don't want to just like bring your clothes and see if it works, and then like, bring everything else?" And I was like a stubborn kid. I was like, "No, I want to bring everything, my Xbox, whatever I had at the time, And I brought it all out there. And the next day I called my grandpa. I said, I gotta come back. And I was like crying, because long story short, it just didn't work out. My dad didn't have the capacity for me to be there at that time, right? He thought that he did, and I thought that he did, and within one day, it was evident that he didn't, know? And so I think, when you're a kid, you then start to think that you're the problem.
Yeah.
You're like, well, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm a bad kid. Like, maybe I'm the reason that my parents, like, got divorced in the first place. Or, like, maybe fill in the blank, right? And so, it was hard, dude, like, growing up for me. It was, like, really hard, right? And I think that more than anything in the world, you want to prove people wrong. That was, like, a big part of why I became an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't even know it at the time, but, like, I always had that entrepreneurial blood. And I think it was because, like, I'll show you mentality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, you think I'm a nobody? Like you think I'm not worth anything? Like, then I'm going to make something of myself and I'm going to prove to you that I am worthy. Right? And obviously now I know that like I'm worthy no matter what because I'm a child of God.
Right.
Right. But like at the time I didn't know that. At the time it was just like, in order for me to be worthy, like in my dad's eyes, I've got to like be a millionaire, or I've got to like make more money than him, or I've got to be successful. I got to make him regret not being my dad. Like, it was like kind of that concept until, of course, I shifted more into my faith. But, and now I have a great relationship with my dad. So it's kind of a weird thing, right? Like everything comes full circle. I'm taking my dad to dinner on Friday night for his 65th birthday. And I have a great relationship with him, and my mom, right? And, but I think it's tough, man. Like, I agree. I think kids, look, I'll say this. It would like 1 degree. If I would have just gone 1 degree a different direction, I would not be in a good place in my life right now. Like there has been multiple times in my life where like God literally pulled me out. Like I look back now in retrospect and I'm like, dude, like my friends at that time, like they're like dead or in jail. Like it's not good. Like, and for whatever crazy reason, like I just stopped hanging out with them at the perfect time.
Yeah.
And like, so like looking back, I'm like, whoa, like God was actually in my corner that whole time.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know it. But like I could have very easily ended up in either dead or in jail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think it's, it's just one of those things where a lot of people listening, they probably have a similar story, not growing up with a dad. And, maybe they've been letting it be an excuse, right? Like, man, you don't know how tough I've had it. You don't know, like, what I had to grow up with and the circumstance and all these things. And it's true. It's like I feel for those people, but at the same time, you still have a choice of how you're going to handle it.
Yeah.
And you and I both know that you can have a dad. We all have access to God.
Yeah. And he's our heavenly Father.
Yeah.
Right? Like
he's a much better dad than even my dad.
He's a perfect dad.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, it's like we all have access to a father. And, we also, to what you just said, it's like we have the opportunity also to be better parents than our parents. And
change the family name.
Yeah.
Change, like alter it, like make it not be the way it is. You see people like that, right? They're like, but my family's been doing this for 3 generations. It's like, then cut it out.
Yeah.
Why? Stop it then. Then you have a right. You have the ability to change that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, everybody's gotten divorced for my dad and my dad's dad and my dad's dad's dad. Everybody gets divorced. So like, I'm going to get divorced too. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Why? How come? Why do you have to do what they've always done?
Right.
Why can't you be the change? Yeah. I agree, man.
I love it. Well, dude, I've had a blast chatting with you, man. Where can people find you?
I appreciate you, brother. It means the world to me. At Austin Zaback on any platform.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if anyone needs to sell a house in Arizona, or you got a house you want to sell or wholesale, he's got you. And go check him out. And bro, I'm sure we'll be doing more together. So
I really appreciate you. Yeah. No, it means the world. And I'm glad that I was able to be here.
Yep. So guys, go do that. Make sure you subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
See you then.